Our kind of embroidery is trying to get out the classical embroidery material use. And there is no limit. We have used mussels and seashell. It could be a chocolate paper, froissé. It can be anything. The embroidery was made for the dress. Some other designer, the dress is made for the embroidery. Some designer like Marboran or Monsieur Givenchy, they come, they say, I want to be the first to see your collection, huh? And I hope you didn't show that to anyone.
I was aware that I'm making expensive clothes, and yes, I'd like to make something that was different in many ways because I wanted to be different from the other designers. And within my collection, I made big collections in the old days. I had as many as 250 models. I did it to satisfy my ego, obviously, you know. If I got onto something I liked it, I would make variations and so forth and so on. But it's redundant because no one can absorb all those things.
A lady who buys haute couture is a lady who has time and a lot of money. A very beautiful blouse can take 55 hours of work. So a long dress sometimes takes 70, some take more, but it's impossible to say what, because it's a lot of work anyway. There's no limit for anything, no limit. None.
The sewing in those days was all done by hand, and I don't think people realize how a little snap, and it's all done by hand, and I would be amazed at everything.
The most luxurious materials were used, the most luxurious trimmings and embroideries were used, but also that it was fitted to you. Even though there might be other women that ordered the same dress, everything was done to your specific measurements. So these are made-to-measure clothes.
On pense toujours que la dernière collection que l'on fait est la meilleure, parce qu'on est encore dans les affres de la création et qu'on a on a recherché ou qu'on a des plus jolies broderies que d'autres années ou qu'on a été mieux inspiré. Ça ne s'arrête pas, vous dessinez, vous dessinez, vous dessinez. Et ça, c'est le drame parce qu'on on faisait trop de modèles à la fin et je me faisais attraper par le directeur qui me disait « Mais vous avez fait 200 et quelques modèles, c'est de la folie, ça va durer. »
C'était moi qui réglais tout ce qui était essayage, tout, choix de tissu et choix d'atelier. Ça, c'est sûr. Ça, j'ai jamais confié à personne d'autre.
This is a work where you put a lot of emotion into it, and sometimes it's very difficult. Once I distance myself from a collection, I can look at it completely in a very different way. But while I am working in the collection, it's very difficult for me.
Not everybody cared about it, I guess, but you had an original dress that was made by some wonderful designer, and it was sewn so carefully and beautifully, and the little hem and everything. You don't see that anymore. It's a day that's gone. But it was lovely to be able to look at and see what people did at those times.
My grandmother loves to now kind of hear about what kind of designers that we're into. And Tom Ford, I remember her telling me, I met someone named Tom Ford the other night, and the next day he sent her the exact skirt she had been talking about, and she said, now I have this skirt that Tom Ford did that's just wonderful. So she's always keeping up.
John Galliano, who's now the big star at Christian Dior, I met when he was at Givenchy before he went to Dior. And I said, oh, this is wonderful. And then I looked down, and he was barefoot with the brightest red toenails, and one was purple and one was red. So I thought, oh my God, this is the designer of this? But anyway, he was. And then he's been the designer and very successful at Dior. The things that he puts on the runway are really runway things, because today, those fashion shows like Chanel are really stage shows, and they're really wonderful and fabulous. They're not about what you're going to wear, really. And so he had all these incredible things that came out on the runways, but that's not what you go in to buy or to get.
this is a very exciting time to be creating clothes, because never in the history of time there had been a woman as in control of her destiny as a woman today.
Everyone has to wear what looks well on them, and you find somebody that you like, and it's just, you know, you have to figure out what looks best on you.
You know, Betsy actually always knew exactly what was right for her, which is a key to dressing well. Today, fashion is global, and a woman who dresses well everywhere.
She has a great international look. She could be a French woman or an English woman, but more than that, she's an American woman, and she has great, great style.
Any designer would love to have her, because she's tall, number one. She's, I think, stocking feet, she's like 5'9", and she's very willowy and very slim, you know. And she was very consistent with her look. She was very slick, slim. She wasn't frou-frou. She just knew.
Mrs. Bloomingdale is a lady one can only admire. She is impeccable. Her hair's lovely. Her clothes are well ironed. She always looks the best for us that she can. And I think that's elegance.
I wish that I had more style like my grandmother, I would say, definitely, because whenever I see what she has on, I think, oh, she looks amazing. My grandmother was so smart with her dresses, and she would often have a photograph attached to them so she could look back and remember where she wore the piece and the date of the piece. So I loved going through and seeing, okay, she wore this to this event, and this is how she looked in it, and going through and just feeling the fabric of the pieces and imagining her in it.
And she always has on the right outfit for the right event.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Mm-hmm. She didn't make mistakes in dressing. She knew exactly what to wear. So I never saw her not well dressed. Never.
One of the stories that Mrs. Bloomingdale has mentioned to me is so funny. She was at Blenheim Palace, which is an incredibly beautiful estate in England.
We went out in the country, and it was one of these fabulous old houses. And then the time was come for everybody to leave. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to make that 2-hour ride back to London on the bus. Where's the ladies' room? And the ladies' room, they told me, was like up in the attic. And I went up there, and I had to get out of this dress. And Mark Bowen had put it together for me. And when I came down, they said, where were you? Where were you? There was one seat left for you. Come on, come on. And I was holding the bus up, but I had to get out of the whole dress and put it back on.
Haute couture clothing can be challenging to wear. They're not easy to hook and snap and loop and button and close on your own if you don't have somebody helping you.
I never forget that. It's terrible. I was invited to the 60th birthday of Johnny Spencer, the Earl of Spencer, who was the father of Princess Diana. And it was his 60th birthday, and I went and I got this wonderful off-white dress from Dior, and a coat, oh yes, a coat, because it was March and it would be cold, long coat, beautiful coat. And in the reception, they took the coat off and hung it up, and I never saw the coat again until I left and put the coat on, went back to London. And so I realized, I spent all that money on that coat, and I would never wear it in California, maybe in New York. That white coat only went to that dress, and it was a long coat to the ground, so I always regretted that. One of the last great balls in Paris, must be late 60s, and I'd never seen anything quite like that, and everybody was dressed to the nines.
The Bal Oriental really has become legendary, and Betsy fondly remembers going to this ball. She has always considered it very amazing that she got invited by the Baron Alexis de Rode, who was an aesthete. He was a dandy. He was a very wealthy individual who threw incredible parties.
Everything was perfection, and I needed something to wear. have this wonderful thing of Jimmy Galanos, and I went to Halston, who did the headdress for me.
This was an evening pant outfit at a time that it was inappropriate for women to wear pants in public in the evening. And the bra top itself is one layer of silver lace with one layer of nude chiffon lining. So it's semi-transparent.
It was a perfectly fabulous ball. And when you walked into this fabulous place on the Ile Saint-Louis, there were live elephants in the courtyard, and they were all with parasols and all the way up the staircase were men, all nude from up here and wearing big pantaloons and all greased up, and they stood on the doorway as you went up to the stairs and your name was called out. And then you went into this fabulous room, and it was, well, everybody looked so sensational. The best dressed list, I guess, they have a meeting, and they all met at Eleanor Lambert's apartment in New York, the people who were assigned to do best dress. That's the way they tell me it was done. And I got on that dress list somehow.
Betsy was first nominated to the Best Dressed list in 1964. And in 1970, she was inaugurated into the International Best Dressed Hall of Fame, which really has solidified her with a number of individuals who still maintain an influence for young designers today.
Then I went on to doing lectures, everyone's style. Everyone has it, and if you want to develop it, you can, kind of thing. I was always amazed that they paid me.